Hi everybody, I'm Carla. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm here from the U.S. Consulate in Hyderabad and you're in my kitchen right now and I'm about to make a very special Thanksgiving treat, which is apple pie. This is made every year for Thanksgiving. I usually look for any excuse to make apple pie, but let me show you what I'm doing. So I'm going to use a recipe from my favorite book, The Joy of Cooking. And what I'm going to do, we've got about 8 apples sliced up nicely. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cook them. So when we make apple pie, sometimes the juice in the apples, if you just put them straight into the oven, it makes the crust too mushy. So we're actually going to heat these apples up. I'm going to use about 100 grams of butter. Everything tastes better with butter. And we're basically going to saute those apples in that butter, and then in a little while I'm going to add some sugar and cinnamon. Okay, so I have my butter in my pan here, all sizzling. You want to take a look? Oh, that looks good. Refer back to the earlier statement, everything's better with a lot of butter. So I'm just going to dump the apples into my pan. Can you see that? Ooh. And I'm just going to toss the apples so they're coated with butter. And then after that, I'm going to cover that. Lower the heat to about medium. And just let the apples cook. And what they're going to do is they're going to emit their juices. And that's going to help our pie to not be so soggy. Apple pie is probably my favorite dessert, and it's a very American dessert. So our apples are nicely coated. I'll show you them in my little pan here. Okay, I've got my apples cooking. They've been cooking in the butter for about 5 minutes, and I think that's good because I don't want them to get too mushy. I'm going to add 3/4 a cup of sugar. And about 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. And 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. And I'm going to mix that, and I'm going to let it come to a nice boil, and those juices are going to start to thicken. That's really what I want to have happen. I want those apples to get their juices out, and I want to have a nice thickened sauce around the apples that's not too wet. So that's going to cook nice. I'm going to put it on higher heat again to evaporate that liquid out. Okay, I'll show you what it looks like. So those apples are cooking really nicely, huh? They look great, right? But we want that to bubble. So let's get that going. Again, my sauce is getting a little bit thick, which is exactly what I'm going to have happen. I wish you could smell it. It smells really good. All right, I'm going to show you my apples, what they look like now. Nice and thick. So we boiled that for about 3 minutes or so, not too long. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let them cool on a cookie sheet. Because again, we don't want those apples to cook too much, or they're just going to turn into mush. So I've got them spread out on a cookie sheet there. You see that? I'm just going to make those nice and flat so they cool nicely. And again, they don't keep cooking. I can see the steam coming off. Okay, and then we're just going to set that aside and let it cool for when we're ready to fill the pie. Okay. Okay, so my apples are cooling, and now I'm going to do the fun part, which is rolling the dough. I made this dough last night. It's basically 2½ cups of flour and about a teaspoon of sugar and the same amount of salt and some butter, cold butter that's chopped into it. And it comes out making a nice dough that I kept in the fridge overnight. And basically you're going to make a really big chapati. I'm going to use an American style rolling pin because this is what I'm familiar with. And you're basically going to just start from the center and roll the dough, not pushing too hard. Looks a little bit dry, so I'm going to patch it with some water.
You snack?
Okay, so I basically have my Jaigundo chapati. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold it into quarters. Can you see that? And then put it in the center of my pie pan. This is my pie pan. This is an antique pie pan I bought in Syracuse, New York. And I'm just going to gently put it inside the pan, and then I'll just unfold it while it's in the pan. So I'm just going to go like that. And like that. And I've got nice extra room on my pan here. I'm going to just shift it a little bit. Basically you want to have nice overhang so you got plenty of extra dough to work with if you need to. And I'm going to push the dough into the corners so I don't have any air pockets. Make sure it sits flat against the walls of the pie pan. So basically you have this. Alright?